In 1997, I was a law student in my second year, and I just wanted to learn more about this new experiment, as it was at the time. And through connections, I got the chance to intern. It was just an internship. I was the first intern in the East London office. They had 4 offices: Cape Town, East London, Durban, and Johannesburg. And I was the first intern in the Eastern Cape region, which was great because I could a little bit choose what I wanted to do. I was doing some research at the University of Fort Hare, where Nelson Mandela studied, where Tutu studied, and I wanted to go and see the hearings. So I went to several hearings. They had 2 different sets of hearings. They had amnesty hearings, and they had human rights violation hearings. And they were totally different. Like Archbishop Tutu, who was the president of the whole Truth Commission, he was presiding the human rights violation hearings. The Amnesty Committee, they had 3 committees: the Human Rights Violation Committee, the Amnesty Committee, and the Reparation Rehabilitation Committee. And the Amnesty Committee were presiding the amnesty hearings, and they were judges and lawyers and priests presiding the Amnesty Committee hearings. And I went to both, and I traveled to Pretoria to go to one very important amnesty hearing where the hearing was about very high-ranking police officers who were working for death squad, and they were committing terrible crimes. And it was very touching to see how in front of the camera everything was public, everything was filmed, everything was reported in the evening news, and they confessed what they had done, because that were the conditions to get amnesty: full disclosure. The act had to be committed between 1960 and 1994, and it had to have a political motive. And when I sat there and saw what happened when people confess, something changed, and it changed my whole perspective of how to be a judge. What I thought was very, very interesting is on the one side, the human rights violation hearings, the victims' hearings, a lot of terrible suffering stories came into the consciousness of the country. And through the amnesty hearings, the other side also came into the light. So a lot of cases were never examined. They didn't know what happened. Very often the black people just wanted to know where they died, and they wanted to bury the bones. So with the amnesty hearings, the perpetrator said, yes, I've done this, I've killed this person here, and we did whatever we did. So actually they could take the bones, find the bones, and bury them. And very often all they wanted and all they asked from the commission was the money for the tombstone. That was all. And an old woman came in front of the Truth Commission, and she had lost her grandson, who was the breadwinner of the family. Same thing, he just was at the wrong place at the wrong time. Had done nothing. And he got shot. And she said, just that today I'm here and I can tell you my story gives me back my worth as a human being. After that I became a civil law judge. And even in my civil law cases, I talked about the Truth Commission. I just kind of tried to show it's not always so important to get right, to be at the right side. Sometimes it's more useful to say, okay, it's not so important, let's have a settlement, let's meet in the middle. And I just managed to get a lot of settlements in just referring to what I've experienced in South Africa. If I give space for the perpetrator, that he doesn't have to fear harsh sentences, he would open. So very soon the lawyers, they got that if the perpetrator would admit what he had done, would take responsibility, the punishment go down. And somehow the prosecutors were behind me. I would always really kind of have everybody integrated into this process. And when the prosecutors, who are usually harsh and want stronger sentences, but when they actually saw in the courtroom what happened, and the victims really could see, they were just kind of growing into their strength again. And the I was really sometimes the prosecutors protected me from my administration, and they kind of said, hey, the field's doing a really good job. And the crime rate went down in my district. After 3 years of me being there, a lot of young people I never saw again. Because I think actually taking full responsibility in front of a judge, sometimes even having the media in the back of the room, takes so much more courage than just sitting there and then going to prison, serving your sentence, and coming out. You don't change. Very often you get worse because you've been pushed down. But actually, it's taking full responsibility. And I mean, I've been dealing with young people, 14 to 21, and I have to say, I admire my accused. They took responsibility for whatever they have done. So what I try to do in my courtroom is to support their strength and to say, you know, what you've done is wrong and you shouldn't be doing this. And I really don't want you to do this again. But I want you to know that what you did afterwards and sitting here and saying, yes, I've done this, I admire you for doing this. And they were like, wow, a judge is saying something positive about me. And they were growing again as well into their strength in a way. And this gives them the strength to not commit a crime. So we really have to go back to, what do we want? Do we want people to stop committing crimes? How do we get there? And everybody thinks prison. No. If prison would work, nobody would ever come back to prison. And how does it actually look like? People are going back and going back and going back and going back. So, but if you actually support their strength, if you support them in finding a way to deal with emotions, in finding the love that's in every one of us, you can change. You can make a difference. You can change them and stop committing crimes.